we started every Sunday. Okay, so the recording is starting now. Is that right? Okay, great. So on Saturday, April 20th, we started gathering every Saturday at the Takoma Park Silver Spring Food Co-op with tools, with a plan to save all 5,000 identified trees that were literally dying from invasive vines in Takoma Park. And I have to say, one number that really pops out now is the number 24. And 24 is the number of consecutive Saturdays without a single pause that we have gathered as volunteers as part of this Tacoma Tree Saver program. I'm talking about like July 3rd. We had a pretty good crowd July 3rd. Every, even holiday weekends, people have turned out, which is amazing. And we have some other cool eye-popping numbers to share with you in a moment. I think a lot of us have developed, there was a volunteer, I forget his name, Jesse, earlier in the spring, who coined the phrase, what was his name? Jordan,
yeah. Jordan.
And he said he had developed the vine eye. Like wherever he went now, he saw vines and wanted to do something about it. And I think a lot of us have the vine eye. And I know when I walk in Takoma Park now, most people when they walk, if you notice them walking down the street, they're looking down at their feet. Maybe they're looking ahead, they're looking to the side, talking to someone. But I think most of us now, you're probably like me, when I walk around Takoma Park, I do this. I walk like this. I'm always looking up. And I feel like I inhabit the world of the upper canopy of trees in Takoma Park. I know Takoma Park by the tree canopies. I know where the biggest trees are collected. I have my favorite canopy spots. I know areas where there aren't as many trees and I feel sad. I just know Takoma Park from like 50 feet and higher because I have the vine eye and I'm always looking and admiring trees, which is really cool. That's something new in my life. But before we go any further, I'm wondering if each of you could just give your name. I think most of you, actually, if you've cut vines as part of this project, raise your hand. If you've already done it, great. I think that's most of you that I can see. If you're brand new to this project, let us know, unmute yourself and tell us, but I think most everyone has participated in this project. And I want to go through and just call out names and ask those of you who participated, think about how many, your own estimate of how many trees you have rescued since the beginning of this project. I'm guessing for me, it's probably 150 just because I do it a lot. I committed to rescuing 100. I think I've done more than that. And then I'll just go to Nancy. How about you? What's your estimate?
So I'm teamed up with Mary, but we're, I think, around 70 or 71. So Mary's keeping count, yeah. And we've adopted more, so we're still cranking through it.
I actually have a list of 84.
Yay.
84.
We don't
That's
necessarily
great.
work as quickly as other people, but we're thorough.
We're very thorough, yeah.
Quality, it's quality.
I also know that you guys have tackled some big trees in some difficult areas. And I just want to say, just seeing all of you, it reminds me of just the sense of community that I feel like that we've developed. I look forward to Saturday mornings where I'm going to see Bob, who lives on Maple, who comes almost every week. There's David Olson, who comes usually with a cut-off t-shirt, his sleeves cut off, and he has his game face on, ready to go cut vines. There was a 13-year-old young woman who from DC who was coming regularly for part of the summers. There were the brothers, what were their names? Richard and Robert, who came a lot this summer from Bethesda. But someone who really sticks out in my mind is the person I'm going to call on next, because it's Elizabeth. And she always rolls up on her bicycle, gets her assignment, and then she disappears on her bicycle with her tools on her back. And it's always a pleasure to see you. So Elizabeth, welcome. And how many trees would you say you've rescued this summer?
I think maybe 30, although I committed to 50, but I haven't been able to come as often as I'd hoped. So if we continue, maybe I'll get there and finish my 50.
Well, I will also tell you that when you have the vine eye and you walk around, not only do you see the vines where you're like, oh, we got to get that tree. Obviously, we also see the vines that we've cut and that are turning brown and falling off the trees. And I know that some of you, I know some of the areas that y'all have concentrated on. So when I walk in certain parts of Takoma Park, I think of particular volunteers when I see those beautiful trees shutting off those invasive vines. So Elizabeth, when I walk down lower, what do they call it? Little Eastern Avenue in Takoma Park, because I walk there a lot in the morning. I know you took care of a lot of, there are a lot of trees on that one stretch that I know you took care of. So I want you to know I think of you when I walk down there.
Thank you. You're
Let's see,
inspirational.
David Olson, the man, the myth, the legend. How many trees?
340.
Man, you're just ruining it up for all of us.
No, I don't mean to do that. And some of those were with other people. There's been a few times when I've partnered, but mostly I've been on my own. So
amazing. Seriously, we want a hair sample so we can clone you. No, that's amazing, David. You've inspired all of us and set the bar high for all of us. Timothy.
Can you hear me? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've only volunteered once in Takoma Park, and I think it was maybe that July 3rd when it was like 140 degrees.
Got it.
And I think my friend Patricia and we got maybe about like 10 trees, I want to say. And I was trying to get Patricia kind of hooked on it because she's kind of in Takoma Park. So I'm like your DC support guy.
Fantastic. I hope you can join us again, yeah. Timothy, soon.
Yeah. It's great.
Miriam, I see you on your phone, and let us know, are you new or you've cut vines? And if so, how many trees would you say you've rescued? Miriam, can you hear us? Maybe we'll come back to you. Okay, Michael, you're next. Okay, I think a lot of people here are maybe, there you go.
Yeah, hi, I'm in my car. I'm sorry, I'm running errands. I have not volunteered yet. I'm with Friends of Sligo Creek, and among other things, I edit the newsletter, and I'd love to do a piece about this project and maybe garner some more interest. We have about 1,300 subscribers, so if there's a way I can reach one of you by email to, get some material, photos and some, text. But I've done a lot of English ivy in Long Branch Park, below Carroll Avenue, between Garland and Glenside, and north of Carroll towards Piney Branch Road. So I know what you all are struggling with, and I agree. It's very satisfying, and if you've got some steam to blow off, there's almost no better way to do it than cutting.
Heading a very,
yes.
Yeah, under the heading of very satisfying. David Olson, what is your phrase that sticks in all our heads?
I can't remember which one.
David Olson says it's the greatest sense of instant satisfaction, instant gratification that you get every week. You just come and get your instant gratification every week. So Michael, I hope that you will do a story for your 1,300 readers. I will tell you that we have been lucky enough to have several journalists write or record what we're doing over the summer that you guys should be proud of. You're onto something inspiring when journalists start knocking on your door. So Jacob Finson of WAMU did a story. When was that, Jesse? Like in June, I think it aired.
On my birthday, July 9th.
July. And that really brought us a lot more volunteers, and it's still on their website. It's still, when people show up on Saturday mornings, we ask them, when we see the usuals, we say hi to them. But when people are new, we ask them, how did you find out about this? And a lot of people still say, oh, I heard about it on WAMU. Someone sent me a link. So that was great. And also, the online political publication Maryland Matters did a really nice piece about our project, I think in July or August. and they also did a video, and that got a lot of eyeballs. And I wanted to tell y'all that after that Maryland Matters story ran, a cutthroat Republican lobbyist from Baltimore, who I know from Annapolis, because I lobby a lot in Annapolis on climate issues. And this guy, his name is John. He represents all the bad guys. If you're a company producing some kind of bad product or doing something bad to the environment, John's your lobbyist. But you know, I know him and I see him around, and you know, we joke and all that. He called me up after he read the Maryland Matters story, where Josh Kurtz wrote about how this is a problem. This is a problem across the country. These folks in Takoma Park have a novel idea, a novel approach, volunteer-driven, data-driven. John read that story, and John, of all people, called me up and he said, Mike, you and I don't see eye to eye on 99% of things in the world, but on this 1% of stuff, I'm with you. And he wants to get a bill passed. He and I are going to work together on a bill to get the state to fund more activities like this, including if you see a utility cut, you know, where those big utility wires are, and on the edges, you see it's an edge forest, and invasive vines are everywhere. The utility crews they cut trees and they spread the invasive vines. So John has an idea of making utilities eradicate invasive vines within like 10 feet of their right-of-way. So I just want y'all to know, you inspired a story in Maryland Matters newspaper, which got a Republican lobbyist to call me, that is probably going to lead to some kind of legislation that's going to save even more trees. So I just wanted to throw that in, since we had Michael talking about news stories. I wanted to throw that in. So Michael, we hope you do write a piece for Friends of Sligo Creek. Next, I'm going to move to Erica. Erica, do you want to tell us how many times you've volunteered and how many trees you think you saved?
Well, I haven't had a chance to volunteer with this effort yet, I'm sorry to say, but I have gone rogue on my own and cleared some vines off of trees, you know, with all the walking I've been doing. I just passed the same ones every day, and I eventually couldn't take it, and I took the vines off and then promptly got poison ivy, of course.
Aww.
But I am interested in participating with your efforts, so I wanted to get on the call tonight to hear what you have planned going forward. I also
outstanding.
I lead the local Citizens Climate Lobby chapter, and I was thinking that some of our volunteers would probably be very interested. So I wanted to learn a little bit more so I could share with them and ask them to gather on a Saturday morning to help you out.
That's outstanding. I'm a huge fan of Citizens Climate Lobby. In fact, I was on a call today with people from Citizens Climate Lobby. Great group that fights for climate legislation. So thanks for joining us. Let's see, Elizabeth.
Hi, I have not volunteered yet. I do pull off things that I see that are more at waist level. But I would like to be more active because for many reasons, but venting is one of them.
Great. Great. Well, Elizabeth, you're welcome anytime, every Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m. without fail, apparently, rain or snow or whatever, heat. We have been there 24 straight Saturdays, and we intend to keep going without pause. So anytime you want to join us, please do. Margaret.
One second.
Go ahead.
What equipment should we bring with us?
Well, if you have, we use gloves, pruning saws, simple pruning saws, and garden clippers. And if you don't have any of those tools, we will provide them for you when you arrive.
Thank you.
And we also have some anti-poison ivy lotion and stuff like that. Margaret, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Margaret Bowman. I have not volunteered. Nice to see you, Mike. But I live next to Opal Daniels Park and have been working on invasive vines, controlling those for, 15 years or so. In fact, we were so successful in getting rid of kudzu that we had to install a rain garden to control the erosion. And we work on that too. But I saw y'all out there the other day. I've been meaning to get up to volunteer, but I've never thought about it as a climate action. And I think that's a brilliant connection, and just want to learn more about what you are doing.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. Yes, we know that an average tree will sequester about a ton of CO2 if it reaches maturity and is given a chance to live a reasonably full life. And so every time these vines rip a tree down, kill a tree, wisteria, English ivy, you name it, that is a real impact on the climate. In fact, I would guess that, you know, let's take our superstar, David Olson, 300 and something trees. Think about that. That's 300 tons of CO2 that he has helped sequester that otherwise would have, you know, the trees would have decomposed, flushed their CO2 in the atmosphere, and then not sucked down more CO2. The average American emits about 20 tons of CO2 a year from our lifestyle. That's 20 tons a year from all the driving, all the heating, cooling, all the agriculture. So David Olson, you're good, man. You're going straight to heaven. You could live the rest of your life and fly to Europe, and you've offset everything. So no, it is a serious climate issue to rescue these trees, especially now that climate change is putting more stress on trees. We've seen so many of the oak trees in Takoma Park, big ones, century-old oak trees just dying. And we need to protect all the trees we can. We don't have a single tree to lose in terms of climate change and all the other ecosystem benefits that we know they bring to our lives, including joy. So is there anyone I've missed? We wanted to get y'all involved here at the start before we start, you know, getting to the homework part. Was there anyone else who wanted to share who hasn't had a chance?
Mike, this is Miriam. You might have called on me earlier. Just had a little problem with my unmute, but I do want to volunteer, but I don't really have anything more to add beside that. I'm glad to be here for this
anytime
session.
Fantastic, Miriam, and thanks for joining the call. We hope that you take away some stories that inspire you, and we'd love to have you part of our community. And that's really what we're building, is a community of people who have the vine eye, who care about their community, and also, you know, our goal all along, we all know this problem of invasive vines on trees is a problem everywhere. I mean, you go to Rockville, Bethesda, you know, parts of Northwest DC or Southwest DC, wherever you go, Annapolis, when I drive to Annapolis for work, you know, I just see so many trees dying, just blocks from the state capitol. So this is a problem everywhere. Our goal was to beautify our city, save the trees in our city, but also, as y'all have heard me say before, create a volunteer-driven, activist-driven model that's based on real data and real volunteer work that can then be spread to other communities, not just in Montgomery County, not just DC, but hopefully our goal is Joe Biden's climate agenda passes in the next few weeks. I work on that every day. And if it does, it will include something called a civilian climate corps. They're talking about like $10 billion for young people and retired people and everyone in between to go out and do something that benefits the climate. And this would be perfect. This would be perfect. So we're hoping to write this up once we save all 5,000 trees in Takoma Park, write up this story, you know, throw in all our media clips, all our testimonials from great volunteers like y'all, and then hand it to the White House or whoever's running the civilian climate corps, and hopefully they can replicate this. So we're doing this for ourselves, and we're also doing it to share with others. So with that, I think we can go into, we're going to do it. So we're going to give y'all some progress numbers in a moment. There we go. Let's just cut to the numbers. I think we had covered most everything on that first sheet. Jesse, is that right? You want to go back? Let me see if there was something on that first slide that
It was just a reminder of the threats and why we're doing this and how invasive vines do their damage, and just kind of, you know, a lot of you have heard this spiel at the beginning of our events, but just talking about, you know, sort of the double-edged sword of climate change and invasive. So the fact that climate change will exacerbate invasive growth and will exacerbate the stresses on these trees And so if we can remove one of these stressors, which is the vines, we can help buy these trees some time and some space.
And that is Jesse Buff, who has lived in Takoma Park forever. He and I both were in Peace Corps. He is the tree expert. He's the one who showed up miraculously, the perfect person to run this program for us. He works part-time for Chesapeake Climate Action Network. And he's the one who does all the work. I show up on Saturday mornings as often as I can for the fun stuff, but he's in the background keeping the data, crunching the numbers. So Jesse, why don't you walk us through these numbers?
Sure. Yeah. So as Mike said, we've had 24 events since April. So we're really basically at the halfway mark on the year. Remains to be seen how hard people are going to work in the cold winter months, but hopefully we can get all this work done by fall and call it done. We've had 224 people come out. Although 125 of those are unique volunteers. So what that means is, we've had 125 separate people come out for at least one event, but 224 people have shown up across those 24 events. And that represents over 10,000 total volunteer hours over the course of those months, which is pretty impressive. So that's averaging a 2-hour work session. And I know that we've had plenty of longer than 2-hour work sessions, and it does not count the time that people like David and Mary and Nancy are out there on their own during the week, toiling and doing repeat callbacks to houses and things like that. So that doesn't even come close to representing the total amount of volunteer time that we've been putting in since this started. And so initially, when I did the assessment, we identified almost 5,000 trees that needed to be saved, and we're almost at the halfway mark of that as well. So we've saved 2,089 trees, which is about 43% of that.
And here's the thing, I was just thinking about this. Yeah, let's look at some photos. 2,000 trees. We've been doing this, I guess we'll count most of April, May, June, July, August, September. Okay, 6 months. So 1,000 trees every 3 months. So if we do continue this throughout the fall, October, November, December, we should get another 1,000 trees. So that would be 3 of the 5,000. I was just thinking today about winter. As long as it's dry and you bundle up, I would think a cold winter day when it's in the 20s or 30s would be much better than a day that's 95 and humid. And you guys never let 95 and humid stop you over the summer. I mean, all summer long, we have consistently had between 10 and I'd say that the mean number for Saturdays is like 10 to 12. I mean, without exception. But then we've had there was that one in July where we had like 30 people. And I think Jesse had like 20 people last Saturday. So this is a lot of volunteers. We're going to record this and send them this recording and all this data. But I'm just thinking, let's go for it. Every Saturday throughout the autumn, let's see how it goes in the winter. If we're getting 1,000 trees per 3 months, then we should hit 5,000 trees in May or June of next year, which is barely a calendar year. That was our goal, was to take care of all these trees in a year. So we're roughly on track. So sorry, I just wanted to throw that in, Jesse.
Great. Yeah, these are just some pictures of people doing the work on some pretty nasty vines. These are before and after shots. That was only a week after. Those vines died pretty quickly. I think Mike, you took this picture.
Yeah, this is by Tacoma Middle School. It's where that's Piney Branch. So you're looking at Piney Branch right where I think is it Grant that comes right there. And this was a before photo that I took, I don't know, maybe in June. And then on 2 consecutive Saturday mornings, I went all the way across this right of way. Now, these are photos I took yesterday. And this is what we're talking about. It was kind of dusk, so you can't quite tell. But you see how, I mean, there were 30 in this one right of way area along Piney Branch between the middle school and Philadelphia. I cut vines on at least 30 trees over 2 Saturday mornings. And man, it feels good to walk by there. And I know you all have spots like that, but this is what we're talking about. 2,000 plus trees like this. Some of them you can see, some of these are big trees. They're 60, 70, 80 years old, and they were ticketed to be overwhelmed and ripped to the ground right there in the heart of Takoma Park next to the middle school and just a few blocks from City Hall. So there you go.
And these are our summer interns who just happened to find some of the biggest vines I've seen since we started this project. You can see the size of those things. They're pretty impressive. So it's good that we put the young people on them.
Jesse, is that wisteria on the left?
The one on the left
is on the right?
I think that's winter creeper on the right and wisteria on the left. Yeah, there's a good example of it in the foreground on the picture on the left. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit too about how we've been doing this work. We've really taken a multi-pronged approach since we started. So for those of you who are familiar with this work, bear with me. For those of you who are new to it, this might be interesting for you. But we've used 2 and sometimes 3 approaches. One was starting door to door. We had a list. We still have lists of all the affected properties in the city. And we would hand list to volunteers, and we started going door to door. That's how we started this work in the spring. And some of our volunteers have continued this, and I'll let them tell a little bit about this shortly. But we quickly switch to focusing on areas of concentrated vines and trees, because we were getting a lot of young people, and I think a lot of people who just weren't as comfortable interacting with homeowners and talking to them and convincing them that these people should let them work on their property, and I get that. And so I think that those 2 things converged, where we had just a lot of younger people who just didn't seem that comfortable, and they preferred to go out as a group. So we ended up spending a lot of the later spring and summer, and we're continuing this in the fall, going to areas of concentrated vines and trees. And so this is mainly in parks, right of way, like the place that Mike just described, occasionally at the schools. And then the third thing that we're doing, that we're trying to get off the ground, is what I'm calling the Tacoma Tree Stewards. And I'll talk a little bit about this later, but this is really having people adopt their own neighborhoods and adopting blocks, in places where they can work at their own pace. And so through the spring and recent months, we've been going door to door throughout Takoma Park. This is a map of Takoma Park. You can see we did a lot of wards 1, 2, and 3, which are the white, blue, and green areas here. And those are the areas with the most amount of houses. And that's why we started with those. And because they're have the most amount of houses, they also have the most amount of trees. There's a high correlation with tree cover and residential property in New York, in Takoma Park. What did I say, New York? And you can kind of see that on this map. It's kind of a hotspot map, but we've been using this hotspot map from time to time throughout the season to just kind of do a ground truthing on where we're working, where are the hot spots. The red would be the concentrated areas. Those are, for example, along Maple Avenue, along New Hampshire Avenue, throughout Sligo Creek and Long Branch. But then there are some little pockets of concentrations as well throughout the town. And so that's one way we've been kind of prioritizing the work. And so this is how we're doing so far. It's a little bit hard to read, so I'll kind of walk you through this. I apologize for this being a little bit thick, but these three categories: single family homes, multifamily apartments, and then parks and other public and government property, represent the three main categories of property types that we've been working on and represent the bulk of where the affected trees are in Takoma Park. There are also schools on our list, businesses, churches, one nursing home, but these three categories really represent the bulk of the types of properties that we've been working on. So in the first column, you've got the number of units that we have to address. So 820 homes, 88 apartment buildings, and 52 park and other public properties. And then we have the number of affected trees. And those were the number of trees that I identified being on those types of properties. And the next column, the percent of total affected trees, was how those categories represent the overall totals of affected trees in town. So close to 50% of all of the vine infested trees were on single family homes, about 12% on multifamily apartments, and then about 30% in parks and other public places. And then for the results, so we visited, and let me qualify this, we visited 431 homes, 12 parks and 12 apartments and about 20 parks or other public areas. And when I say visited, that means that we have either knocked on the door or dropped literature at their place. So we've done about half of the homes in Takoma Park. But the number of homes that we've had that have had an actual human response, where someone has either said, yes, please cut my vines, no, please go away, or I'll have to think about it, we've had about 150. And that's a pretty good response rate. Actually, it's over half of the doors that we've actually knocked on. I'll let David or Nancy or Mary respond to see if they think that's accurate in a few minutes. But you can see the categories of trees that we saved, and so we've done the most on parks, but we've got a ways to go on single family homes as well. And we've done quite a bit on apartment buildings as well. So 22% of single family homes we've been able to get, and so this is how we're going to move forward into the fall. Really doubling down on making those home visits. I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of our challenges and opportunities moving forward. I think the biggest challenge really has been just having people answer their doors. We don't know if it's people aren't home on Saturday mornings. They don't. Maybe when we started, it was early in the vaccination. COVID was, well, I don't want to say COVID was more rampant than it is now, but people might have been less likely to answer their doors if they weren't vaccinated yet. But I have to say, and I'll let David and Mary and Nancy either refute this or confirm this. We haven't had that many refusals where people say, sorry, I'm not interested. So of the people who do answer, we get a pretty good response. I think what we have going for us, that Mike has talked quite a bit about this, so beat a dead horse here, but we've had great public feedback. A lot of people come up to us and say, "Oh, we've heard about you." Since we started working in the summer with Montgomery County, like getting permission to work on parkland in Montgomery County as part of the Weed Warrior program, that's really that's upped our numbers, and we've gotten some interest from outside of Takoma Park because the Weed Warriors have a county-wide reach. And then the other interesting thing that we've noticed too, and Mike mentioned this earlier, was that we can really see that our message is getting out there by observing, dead and dying vines in places that we know that we actually haven't done the work. I'm definitely seeing people doing this on their own.
And I'll echo that. We also left out that the city of Takoma Park approached me and Jesse, the mayor, and some council members, and we're getting a proclamation of recognition, all of us, all the volunteers and everything that we've done. They've got a whereas, therefore, these volunteers are doing a great job and are recognized by the city of Takoma Park. I'm not sure when that's going to become official, but it's going to be soon. So congratulations to everyone. Once we have the official version, we'll share it with all of you. But the point is, as Jesse said, there's real awareness. We've socialized this idea. Right. We've sensitized people to it. And as a result, by people seeing us on Saturday mornings at the co-op, seeing us walking down the streets with our crazy little saws, hearing about us on WAMU, etc., people are developing a vine eye on their own, and they are going out using some of the information that we've shared or that they just know themselves, are going on YouTube, and they're taking care of trees on their properties or at their church or what have you. And that is exactly what we want. So again, your work has been multiplied. If you've saved 30 trees, really your ripple effect is probably saved twice that many. If you've saved 300 trees like David, you probably have a ripple effect that's hundreds more. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, let's give our super volunteers a few minutes to talk about their experiences, because this will, I think, their experiences, their do's and don'ts, and sort of their motivations for doing this work will really be instructive as we move into the fall, and we kind of double down on going door to door and working even more closely with homeowners. So first, I'd like to give Nancy and Mary a chance to talk about things that they've learned. And again, these volunteers that are presenting tonight, Nancy and Mary, as well as David, are they've had great experience going door to door, and I think they're a lot of what makes them effective is that they also take callbacks too. So they're able to, people actually will get back in touch with them if they're not home when Mary or Nancy or David visit, and then they actually do this work on their own time during the week. So Mary, Nancy, do you guys want to say a few words and share some of your experiences?
Sure. I mean, I'll start out. So Mary and I work together, and we've kind of worked through this presentation. So what I'm going to say, I'm speaking for Mary also, and then kind of vice versa. But when we started out, we were working off of lists of addresses, and so we would kind of do cold calls and knock on doors, and then you leave literature. And now there's kind of a different list of people who read the literature, reached out to Jesse and emailed. And so we have their email contacts, and they have said, yes, we want you to come back and follow up on our property, even though they didn't answer the door the first time or they weren't home or something. So mostly what I want to talk about is for the 4 or 5 people here who haven't been volunteering yet, but want to, I just want to kind of reiterate some of the stuff that David and Mike and Jesse have already said, which is it's an extremely satisfying activity. Like, you're out there helping the climate, but also just the you know, you feel good because you're saving the trees, but also just the activity itself, it's a great tension reliever. If you have built up stress or you're worried about the state of the world or something, you know, you hack away at a 4 or 5 inch vine and like, it's very cathartic, you feel better. And plus that you're outdoors, you're getting a lot of exercise. I think we all have the brown vine eye. Mike's exactly right. I walk down certain streets and I look and I go, those are the trees that we worked on that day. And even though it was 95 degrees, you know, you can see the progress. It's different than maybe other things you can do for climate change volunteer activities because it is so specific and so concrete, and it's very quantifiable too. Like we've adopted a certain number of trees, and every day we go out and we work on some trees and we subtract that from the number that we've adopted. And so you can really feel concretely that you're kind of making the progress. And then one thing that has worked for me is that Mary and I teamed up on the first session. So we've been to some Saturday events and you get a lot of energy out of the group. And I think there's a sense of community and that's really fun. But it's like what they say for exercising, you should have a buddy. That person motivates you to go back out. And so we make sure like we're out there kind of at least once a week. You know, and because I know that I've made that commitment to Mary and vice versa, that gets us out there, even if it's 95 degrees out, which it was sometimes. For us, it works out to go out on our own because we have flexible schedules, so we can kind of look at the weather and pick a good time to go. So it's been a good experience, and you learn to identify invasive vines so you can impress your friends. So and Mary's going to deal with some of the other topics. So Mary, to you.
Yeah, okay. Just finding the unmute. Yeah, or your friends will say, hey, I live next door to this apartment building and there are these trees with big vines and I'm afraid they're going to fall on me. And so that other friend and I got permission to work at that apartment building and the park adjacent to it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, I just turned my paper over, interacting with your neighbors or people that you don't know, who don't know you, if you've just been given the address. So picture this, you answer the door and there are 2 little gray-haired ladies with a clipboard. And we don't look threatening probably, but people do wonder, are we canvassing? Are we offering an estimate for replacement windows? That someone asked about scamming in the chat. I remember a couple of people who were a little bit uncertain because they imagined there was going to be a cost. So one thing we try to do is really quickly let them know that we're volunteers for a nonprofit. We explain the organization and the project, and we're doing this for free. There was one woman who, as soon as we were just starting our introduction, and she interrupted and said, I'm sorry, I haven't gotten to plant all the little saplings that I got from the city. No, you're not in trouble. And another woman who was afraid she was on some official city list and she was in trouble for not taking proper care of her trees. No. She was so appreciative when we were done. And that's the thing, everybody just really appreciates that we are giving our time to do this for them. We do ask them if they'd like to do it themselves or if they'd like to come work with us. Usually people are just happy to let us go to work. So that's what we do. You know, we, as I said, we're not very threatening. We stand back 6 feet or whatever. We have our face mask handy. And once they've understood what our mission is, we'll talk about how this is a climate mitigation project and also how it could save them a lot of money and other troubles from trees dying and falling down. So in terms of the technical part, we do protect ourselves. I have gotten a little bit of poison ivy, but I seem to not react very much at this age. So we wear long pants, long sleeves, the gloves, sturdy shoes. I like to wear knee pads because I like to start at the base of the tree to get the roots, the bottom part, and Nancy usually starts a pyre to cut them. We look out for poison ivy, but we don't mess with it, so we don't remove it if we can help it, since it's native and it belongs there. Once we find a vine-covered tree, we also look to make sure it's alive. Sometimes it's, it's way up there and there are a lot of vines, and then you see, oh, just bare branches up there. This is a dead tree. We're not going to spend our time on it. Sometimes we can do an easy tree in 5 or 10 minutes, but a lot of times the mature vines, you saw the pictures, they're like as big around as a tree. Those would take a while. Sometimes the roots are kind of under the tree or kind of embedded in the tree, and we can't really get at them without hurting the tree, but we do the best we can. And we've had Jesse come and consult with us, make sure we know what this is and what should we do with it. As Mike said, especially with all the oak trees dying around here, this seems really important to save the trees that we can. And we really love our trees here in Takoma Park.
Thanks, Mary.
You guys are amazing. And I think you met the first or second Saturday back in the spring, and then that's it. You were the perfect partners, and you've really inspired us. Thanks for sharing your stories.
David, do you want to share your experiences?
Yeah, sure. So I started with the campaign from the very beginning in April, and I think I've only missed one Saturday. I never thought I'd last this long. I was fully intending to take a break in the hot and humid weather in July and August, but somehow it became a part of my weekly routine. I'd get up and I'd say, well, it's not really that bad today. It's cloudy, I can deal with it. And I'm quite shocked that I've made it through the worst of the summer. Like Mike said, I get a lot of satisfaction out of this very tangible act of saving trees every week. So professionally, I work in global health, where the satisfactions are fewer and farther between. I've had a few homeowners also say that they appreciate the fact that we get this instant gratification from saving a tree. Now, walking up to a house of a stranger, knocking on the door and asking to invade their personal space is not something that's in my natural comfort zone. I mean, I consider myself a shy person, but I got over that very quickly, like after the first 10 houses. And the vast majority of the people are very kind, friendly, grateful. I was only turned down once. I mean, flatly turned down. And even that was a friendly, no thanks, no explanation, just no thanks. That was the worst encounter I ever had. So, not very bad. Some people will say, oh, we'll take care of the vines ourselves. And that's fine. So I just hope that they really do it. But I only turned down once, Jesse. So you were correct in your earlier statement. So in terms of technical tips, we were trained to cut the vines at eye and foot level. But I try to pull the vines up by the roots if I can. If I'm not damaging the tree and if I can pull them up. I know we're only buying time, but I figure if I pull them up by the roots, we'll buy more time. So I try to pull them up if I can. Now, I think my most satisfying visit was the one that happened to me last Saturday, when an elderly woman called me back to her house. She was aware of the threat posed by the vines, but couldn't manage them on her own. So she sat and talked to me the whole time. Now, that's unusual. Usually people are in their houses, we don't even see them. I mean, after they let us in, we don't usually see them. This woman sat there and talked to me. She was quite mystified why I would do this hard work in my spare time for free. Because she asked me that several times, why are you doing this? It's so hot out and it's such hard work. I was sawing a big vine at the time. She said her daughter would be very inspired because she used to work in the environmental area. I told her, you should tell your daughter about our campaign. And this lady said, unfortunately, my daughter passed away recently, but she would have been pleased with the work that we're doing. She kept thanking me on the way out. And then she said, with all the bad things going on in the world, it's good to see people like you helping people to save their trees. She was close to tears. And then I kind of got teary. So, you know, that one visit alone made all the work, you know, worthwhile.
Wow.
They're not all like that. Not all the visits are like that, but that was an exceptional one.
Thanks for sharing.
About to make me cry, David. I've never heard. I didn't. That's amazing. We got it. I'm glad we got it recorded.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, thank you all for sharing your experiences. You know, I know we're getting to 8:30 here, but I just wanted to kind of use that as a jumping off point to talk about how we plan to, dare I say, wrap this up this fall, but really get as close as we can to that, you know, almost 5,000 mark. So what we're going to be having a lot of events in the parks. We're going to really double down on the door-to-door, and it'd be great if folks, you know, once you, you know, we're hoping that maybe you'll come out to, those of you who haven't gone door-to-door can, you know, maybe pair up with someone who has gone door-to-door and get a little bit of experience in how they interact with the homeowners, and then you'll feel good about doing that on your own, or bringing another buddy out there to do the work with you. But you know, if we know that we're going to have a number of people who want to go door to door on any given weekend, it'd be great if folks could let me know ahead of time. One thing, as folks have mentioned, especially Mary and Nancy, you know, being paired up is really helpful for companionship, but also for safety. And it also just looks, it looks more, I would say looks more official. You know, and I think that the fact that, you know, you compare people with less experience with people with more experience, that's really a bonus. And now that we have a lot more people with experience, we should be able to make a lot more door-to-door visits. And I think the other thing we have going for us moving into the fall is that, you know, since we're getting some traction, we're getting press, a lot of positive reactions from the community, you know, people, you know, as compared to when we started, people have heard of us. You know, you knock on the door and people say, well, I've heard of you, you know, you're famous, things like that. Maybe that's stretching it a little bit, but you know, that at least it's getting known. The other thing that I mentioned earlier is that I really want to get more people out there becoming Tacoma tree stewards. And this is something that we only have a few takers so far, but I'd really like to get the numbers up this fall. And this is really how we kind of expand the reach of the program, you know, and it really expands our Saturday work during the week. And Tacoma tree savers, the Tacoma stewards, tree stewards, are people that really serve as boots on the ground ambassadors for this work. And they really complement those volunteer work days by kind of facilitating the community engagement amongst their trusted neighbors. You know, people will recognize you. They'll say, "Oh, you're that guy who lives down the street. What are you doing here?" And then you begin this conversation. It also allows people to work at their convenience in a self-directed manner to address the invasive vines. And this is something that David and Mary and Nancy are doing, if not necessarily in their immediate neighborhoods. I'm really trying to get people who want to do it, you know, directly with their neighbors and adopt the blocks that are in close proximity to their house. So it'll really facilitate their going out there and, you know, working a block on a Wednesday, you know, around dinner time, that kind of thing. And then, you know, it just kind of, because neighbors know each other, and because you may be familiar with the trees in your neighborhood that need saving, it really makes this whole thing a whole lot easier. So if people are interested in doing that and adopting their own neighborhood and working on the houses that have yet to be reached or that could use a second visit, please send me an email. It'd be great to get you out there as a Tacoma tree steward. So we are just about out of time. Do people have questions, suggestions? We've had a lot of great chat suggestions as well that'll be recorded. I like Tim's idea of having signs. You know, these trees were saved by CCAN, that kind of thing. I don't know if we have the budget for that yet, but I do like the idea. And we got a good question from Elizabeth about whether we have insurance to cover any industry or injuries by volunteers. Mike, I don't know if I know you and I talked about that early on, but
yeah, I mean, we have started to ask volunteers to sign a waiver just because I have a staff attorney on my staff and they have to think about all the things that go wrong. But we looked into this. I mean, obviously people who work for CCAN are insured through CCAN for any mishaps, but homeowners themselves, if you invite someone to mow your lawn or do plumbing on your property, the typical homeowner's insurance covers any accidents of people that you invite for a legitimate reason to maintain your property, either damage to your property or damage to someone who has an accident. So thankfully we haven't had any accidents. I mean, I think we've all, I mean, I've gotten a few cuts and scrapes and a little poison ivy, but nothing serious, thankfully. So thankfully it hasn't been an issue. I will say that basically the numbers that Jesse was showing us. Jesse, could you go back to the slide that has all the volunteer hours and the trees that we've rescued? Those numbers are amazing. And we're hoping that we can use those numbers to get the city. Someone asked about getting the city more involved. I will tell you, I don't know, Jesse, what the latest count is, but we've spent hundreds of dollars on tools. I don't know, probably $300 or $400 on tools. And a lot of those tools haven't come back to us. And volunteers have them, and I don't blame them. I'd probably forget to bring them back sometimes. But we are going to have to replenish those, and we're hoping the city will help. But look, we've got 2,000 trees. We've got about 3,000 left. And based on Jesse's slides, numbers on another slide, the majority of the trees left are on private property. They're in residential properties. So we have a lot of door knocking in our future. We're going to have fewer parks, fewer right-of-ways, those concentrated single targets, multiple people swarming, taking care of it. Those are getting fewer and fewer, thank God. But we got to go door to door. So I think this fall, you know, we'll hopefully complete some of the parks, and this fall and this winter, I think we're going to be doing a lot of door to door, which is why Mary and Nancy and David, your experiences are so encouraging and helpful because we're going to be doing more of that. So I think that for those of you who are here for the first time who haven't volunteered, we hope you'll join us again every Saturday morning, 8:30 at the co-op. And for the regulars, the volunteers on this call, thank you so much. You're the model. We're going to call on you in the future for testimonials as we take our plan to the White House and go national. You're real pioneers. And I'll remind everyone that this idea of doing a visual inventory, walking every street and road and park in one city and putting the number of trees in trouble on a map has never been done before in America for some reason. I can't imagine why, but we scanned the internet and no one had done it. So this is truly a novel project. It is truly succeeding. I think there's no argument but that this is succeeding. And those 2,000 trees, there's no way Jesse and I could do that ourselves. The reason this works is because of y'all, because we've gotten those 125 unique volunteers to cut vines, and many of them come back. And that is the beating heart of this project. It would not work without you all. So hopefully we're going to continue to grow. Again, every week we usually have like 5 returning people and 5 new people. It's just crazy. Every week it's like half and half. And so we're going to keep building on that. We're going to keep going. Hopefully we'll have some beautiful autumn days. You guys will always have the vine eye the rest of your life. I know I will. We'll take pride in completing this job in Takoma Park. Then, as Jesse said, maintaining. We're going to need to maintain our rescued trees, and then we're going to spread this model elsewhere. So,
can I make one final comment?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, following on to the point you just made about maintaining. So one thing I think we should be doing more of, and I need to do more of this myself, is to emphasize to the homeowners that this is a short-term solution. Now that we've got the vines off, you need to take charge of these next year and the year after to make sure these things don't come back. Now, sometimes I think of saying that, but I'm not doing it consistently. I think I need to be consistent in saying, okay, you're good for this year, but you need to make sure this doesn't come back, next year and the year after. So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do mention that to folks as much as possible, David. That's a great point. I think, unless they're infirm, I think it makes sense, like we're doing this initial work for you, but you've got to do the lifting going forward. But the thing is that we're doing the heavy lifting in most cases, and the maintenance to at least keep the vines off the trees is not very difficult when you're doing it once or twice a year.
Right.
We'll just give them tweezers for the little tendrils, right? We have to have the big saws, but they can use tweezers. Well, listen, we don't want to keep y'all too much longer. This has been a great experience. I'm so glad I have so many new friends and working with old friends on this project. We look forward to all the Saturdays ahead, and want to thank you again for choosing to spend your volunteer time with us. Jesse, thank you for everything you've done to keep this thing going, and we'll see you either this Saturday or a Saturday down the road, and take care. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good to see everyone.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Good luck. Keep going.
Thanks. Come back out, Tim.
I will. All right. See ya.